Hello, thank you very much for tuning in to this section of reads. These readings are valid for whenever you come to them. I am currently doing in-person readings in Herkimer, New York. If you're interested, shoot me an email. I'll give you more details. I'm going to use the information like the decks and dice. I'm going to put that all below. Otherwise, you should be seeing this on YouTube channel James13 Wicca, so I don't forget that. If you're not, let me know. And the last thing is, if you'd like a reading from me, shoot me an email, jamesforastral@gmail.com. That's James the number 4, astral@gmail.com. If you're interested in the donation information, that's below. Same email. Thank you very much for tuning in this time, and let's go ahead and get into your reading. Hello, Pisces. Thank you very much for tuning into this week's read. These readings are valid for whenever you come to them. That being said, what do we have for Pisces? Pisces. Remember your strengths. Remember your strengths. Sometimes I feel I need to say this just in case it comes off a little off color. And I'm a Pisces too. I was raised by 2 Pisces. Blah 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 blah. Slow and steady wins the race. Granted, there are a few different flavors of Pisces, but the bare bones Pisces energy that I'm familiar with, slow and steady does win the race. And pacing yourself and having some sort of plan, it doesn't have to be airtight. It may get you farther than you expected to get to begin with. Because there's something coming in here. Success is trying to come into your life. You have put in the work before. You have done this. I feel like for the majority of you, you have reference to success in your past. I am going to add the little caveat. Just because you were successful with it doesn't mean you enjoyed the process. So we're going to add that in. I don't know why we're going here, but like, you've grown. And maybe there's things in the past where you were successful, but you didn't enjoy it. But you found different ways to handle life. And something, or some things, or some subjects maybe on occasion got the better of you. And it may not be in the sense of like on paper they got the better of you, but it could be in the sense of like it took up space in your mind that was causing you stress, that was making it very difficult for you. And it's almost like I keep feeling this, and again, I'm a Pisces too, so maybe I'm over-connecting with this, but sometimes we succeed on the outside, but there's so much chatter on the inside that we're not either connecting with it as success, or it's kind of like, yeah, technically I did good, but I hated the whole process because I felt like crap the whole time. We evolve, though. For me, for example, I'm a big fan of Paul McKenna books. I use that information. I advance it, evolve it where I need it to go so that things don't rule me like they used to rule me maybe 20 years ago. And I feel like they're trying, before we get too deep into this, they're trying to say, remember that you have found different ways to handle things over the years. Things that when you were younger, it doesn't have to be a long time ago, could have been 2 years ago. Could have been, for some of you, could have been like 2 weeks ago. Certain things happened, and since then, you've learned different ways to handle things. Could be. But you have evolved, and you have found different ways to handle what life is throwing at you. There's something you definitely want that maybe you didn't believe you were allowed to have. Is that right? Can we put the dice on there? You didn't believe you were allowed to have. It's kind of like I could fight for it, but I just don't feel like the fight would have gone where I wanted to. I feel like every step forward would have a different step backwards. It feels like a really bad dance, a dance that just didn't make sense. And I feel like I could move forward, but then it would go somewhere else, and then it's just whatever it was you were trying to get, I started to believe I wasn't allowed this for some reason. Something like that is here. It could have been a job, it could have been a certain type of relationship, so it could have been some type of something. Maybe dancing is literally it. Maybe you just thought, I just don't have the rhythm, I can't make it happen. Which ironically, I've seen people go from believing they can't do that to then somehow they cross over and something clicks, and then I don't know how they do it. I've seen it happen. I don't know the process, but it's just one of those things where we're trying to show that, like, it could be the belief that you can't that is creating the reality that you aren't able to do it currently. And it's shifting over, kind of like, why can't I? Or I wonder, maybe I can't go that far, but how far can I go? If I keep going slow and steady and I just keep working on it little by little, maybe there is something here I could do. Because they're saying there's something here that maybe you don't believe is in your reach. And there might be some reinforcing thought in your head, like, oh, you keep telling yourself, I can't have that, I'm not allowed that. That might be literally what's keeping you from getting what you want. Okay, let's see. Slow and steady wins the race. Remember, small victories are not small unless you define them as small. Small victories are not small unless you define them as small. It's almost like learning a language and going, well, I just know a couple words, I can't do anything with that. But it's realizing, like, if you empower yourself, well, I know a couple words, and then you allow yourself to go, well, now I know a couple phrases. Well, now I can go through a couple small conversations as long as they're super simple. Well, now I can actually get through this. Well, and it's like all these little small victories, and this is why they're saying slow and steady wins the race. If you keep adding up your small victories and you keep celebrating your small victories and keep building on your small victories, it will be a giant mega victory at some point. I feel like a lot of you are like, yeah, I know. I feel like, yeah, I know. Whatever it is you want, start creating your small victories. I remember when I got back into drawing, at first I was like, what am I doing? Like, why does this look so wacky? Why does this look so wrong? And it took me probably like 2 months before I felt like I was getting back into my normal. It's been a couple decades since I've really gotten into art. And it took me probably a couple months to really start feeling like I was starting to connect back into how I used to do things and how I could really do the art that I wanted to. Like, I was really good at portraits at one point, and when I first started getting back into it, I'm just like, this isn't feeling right. I'm not getting the results I'm wanting. I'm not doing the quality I thought I could do. I feel like it's something going on here where it's kind of like being nice to yourself and letting yourself have the small wins, and then giving yourself that care to move forward and just letting yourself enjoy the pieces that you're enjoying. There's something here. I feel like I'm missing something. I really feel like I'm missing something. You don't have to have a stable foundation to get this started. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. You don't have to have a stable foundation to get this started? Okay. All right, then you don't. Let's see where this is going. What do you like about it? I keep shifting through analogies, because now I'm going into, like, maybe this is art related actually. It's kind of like doing things with food and making good food. Like, I can make a really killer peanut butter cookie, but like on the process to getting there, I did other things like, yeah, I think it's called the pancake challenge, where you put colors in the pancakes, and I had fun trying to make that work. It was a personal thing. I just did it by myself. It was a mess, but it was a fun mess. But it was a small thing that I allowed myself to do to get, like, it was a crossover between getting better at cooking and getting better at art at the same time, reconnecting with art. And to me, that, when I look back, I see that as a small victory where I was allowing myself to do both. I was like realizing, even though the color part was a bit of a mess, I was like, I think at the time, that was about the time where I started to click into, like, you got to turn down the heat on pancakes. You got to cook them at a really low point at some point, or they're not going to rise up and they're not going to do what you want. And I think at that point I was also in the impression that I didn't really want to make them from a mix. I wanted to do them from scratch. So that was a whole other thing too. But that was all a part of that process, and putting in the color and learning like what colors connect and what colors don't. It was a small victory, but at the time I remember seeing it like, oh, I just made a mess. Looking back, I'm like, you let yourself experiment with color. You let yourself experiment with certain things with baking, well, cooking, I should say. It's pancake. But it's like realizing that these are small victories and not beating yourself up. These are the miracles. These are the wins that are going to break through to more possibilities for you. I hope that analogy makes sense, because I feel like I'm not totally connecting with what I need to connect with right here. Even though we're already 10 minutes in. I'm like, okay. You don't have to have a solid base. You just got to try. You just got to be loyal to yourself, and you got to try. You don't have to win the major gold medal. You don't have to be the Olympian. Just because you want to compete in running doesn't mean you have to win the National Olympics, the International Olympics. You know, they don't have to win the Olympics next week, next year, in a couple of years. You don't even have to have that as a goal. It's whatever makes you happy. You don't have to have a firm base to start. I keep getting that. So it's kind of like you don't have to have somewhere to start. Maybe that's one of the things too. Like back when I first decided I was going to let myself try art, I didn't feel like I had anything to build from. I just started when I was little. I was probably like 12. I consider that little. And I remember there was a cereal box, and I just was copying the cartoon character on the cereal box, and I was kind of impressed with myself. I was like, you could tell it was that cartoon character, whatever it was. I think it was some type of rabbit. But I was really impressed with myself that I was able to actually do it well enough that you could tell it was that character. And that's the point. It's kind of like you just having the win, you just not having to have that base. I didn't have anybody really teaching me art. Nobody taught me anything about shading or color or shapes or how you match shapes together. I just did my best to make it happen, and I was able to make it happen to the point where you could recognize it. Was it perfect? No. But I saw it as like, wow, if I really try, maybe I could really be even better at this. It's all about seeing the successes for successes and building on those successes. There's a possibility for a great healing for you. It's seeing your process and what process works for you. Do these little successes, if you accept them, do they build you up and help you stand up to go farther? Do they help build you up to go farther? Are certain people in your life not going to back these things? So maybe this is one of those things where it's a private victory. I like the energy, but I feel like they're saying you defining how you need to do this so you could get your success. The moon card pops up. That's your card. That's the Pisces card. And being careful about not overthinking things, thinking it far enough forward to give yourself a safe place to try something. So for example, if you're going to try welding or stained glass, like make sure you do all your safety research first. That's all I'm saying. Especially if you're going to cut glass, because there's little shards you get from it. You can really cause a lot of damage to yourself. Be very, very careful. Watch a lot of safety videos if you're going to do anything like that. I mean, not for nothing. These readings are for entertainment purposes only. I'm just saying, make sure you do your safety research if it's anything dangerous. You don't have to go running forward. You don't have to be the master of the universe with this. They're saying be careful about being too excited and going too far too fast. You could get burnout, or because you don't attain that level as fast as you want to, you might double back and start beating yourself up like, oh, I knew I was no good at this, or oh, I'm not good enough to show this, or I'm not good enough according to that person, or blah, 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 blah. Slow and steady wins the race. Again, the triumph might be in you being your own cheerleader. It might be more of a private cheering section. It might be more of that. It depends on who you have in your life, but I've gotten kind of used to that in certain things in my own life, especially when it came to tarot back way before I had a group of people around me who were supportive. I knew I was good at certain things. I knew I connected to it. I knew I liked it. I kept it private with a lot of situations because I didn't want people ridiculing me or making me feel bad about this or that, or, it's tarot. If anybody who's familiar with tarot, there's a lot of roads where people can just use that against you if they want to. But it was one of those things. I built it up. I got my own confidence. I knew what I needed to do. I knew I could get the messages. I knew I saw things differently than some people. So I had to have those personal victories, and I kept them close to my heart, and I kept them for myself. I didn't let anybody else mess with them. Whatever this is, you have the potential to go very far and have a level of success for some reason you may not be believing you can actually attain. It is there. There will be adversity at some point. You will probably, at some point, if this goal is actually going to come into physical life, you will start showing that goal. You will start showing that success around you. There will be people who are very upset by that. It could be insecurities. Some people have this thing where if you do, they have to do better than you. Some people just have that thing where if you're doing better than them or they think you're doing better than them, they have to tear it down because you can't believe you're better than them because that's going to make them feel less than. That's an error with them because I'm getting like some people might get very upset when you start succeeding. What are you supposed to do with that? They're just giving a warning to be aware of people and to, that's why I use the Paul McKenna stuff personally, but that can be hard, especially for a Pisces, because sometimes we absorb too much energy that's not even ours. Nothing. I think I already said that. You're not supposed to do anything with this. You're supposed to see it like that's a them problem. And realize that this isn't going to make or break you, and don't let it. Other people are going to have feelings and thoughts, and they're going to be very upset when you start showing how talented and beautiful you really are. Especially if it's not conformed to their rules about, well, this is how you're supposed to do this. This is how your hair's supposed to look. This is what you're supposed to wear. This is, you know, how you're supposed to walk. This is how you're supposed to sing. This is how you're supposed to put that away. This is how this is how that. They may have very rigid rules for themselves, and that's their own problem. You probably will start succeeding outside the box. I was just watching this. The person's name who won was Evie Oddly. It was, I don't know which season of Drag Race, but I feel like she excelled outside the box. Of like, some people got very upset about that because she had her own way of doing things and she excelled. Then you do. It doesn't diminish anybody else because somebody else excels in their own flavor. It doesn't diminish anybody else. It just builds that person up, and it does have the potential when you succeed on your own terms, it could build a bunch of other people up as well. Other people who have problems with this, it's the trick to see it like it's their problem and to not let it like populate your thoughts too much any more than you need to like, you know, that's them. Maybe they're just coming to terms with the things that they just have a problem with, and that's for them to sort out. I don't have to be a part of that. And it might be something where maybe I just move what I'm doing, my success, away from them, or I'm just like, you know, they're going to say stuff, but I'm just going to succeed in spite of them. I keep getting that you're not supposed to do anything with that. I just feel like it's kind of like not letting it tear you down and not over investing in somebody else's opinion. It can be a problem for Pisces. I use the Paul McKenna stuff. I do. The book is How to Mend Your Broken Heart. It's geared towards romantic relationships, but a lot of that you don't have to even have a person. Like, there's been situations I've used that for. If you have the book or if you get it, you'll see what I mean, because you don't even have to read the book. You just got to use the exercises. You can go very far with that. There will be more choices to be made. Attaining this level of success will create more for you. And some of it will feel like work. It will feel like work at times. But you can attain this level and you can maintain this level. Not just get it, but keep it. I feel like going into it, realizing that like the deeper I get into it, the more I'm going to have to put some more work into it. It's not always going to be fun and games, but it will be more happiness, more joy than not. So it's kind of like, say this situation, whatever it is, you're spending $100 hours a month. So that's, what is it? If you divide that by 4, it's 25 hours a week you're spending on it. So out of those 100 hours, maybe a quarter of that time is putting in the effort, learning something new, figuring out how this is. So maybe a quarter of it is hard. But the other 3/4 is enjoyment. That's how I feel like it's going to balance out. Like, all right, it's kind of like, you know, I got to pick this up. I got to make sure this works. I got to put this together. I got to figure out how this works. And maybe that's hard. But the rest of it will be enjoying it. Like, there'll be parts of it where you're putting it together and you're like, this is coming together, and you're going to be very excited. It's going to be more pleasure than work, but there will be work there. And there'll be a lot of success with it. It's just addressing that with yourself and realizing sometimes it will be a struggle, but there will always be a benefit to my struggle. There will always be my goal to this struggle. There will always be the happiness from this struggle, the goal and the victory that I want from it. Are we good? Anything else I'm supposed to say with this? This reading has gone on for quite a while. There's victory. I get that there's victory, and there's doing it, you know, slow and steady wins the race. You will set up a tempo. Be careful. You get triumph through doing the level that you're happy with in relation to what makes sense to you. So I feel like I was going really, maybe I went a little too far with like doing whatever this is, 100 hours a month. It seems like that's a lot. So like 25 hours a week, that's like 4. If you divide that by 7, what is that? 25? Is that 4? That's not quite 4 hours, like 3 and change a day. That may be way too much. It may be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you spend maybe 15 to 20 minutes to start. Maybe that's it. Maybe you're learning a new language. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you get up a little early, or maybe you're up a little early. You spend 15 to 20 minutes just trying to learn new words, just words you didn't know, and then reviewing the words you already did know. So maybe, for example, you're like, today I'm going to learn the word for box and the word for lamp. And that's all I'm going to do today. And then the next time, when Wednesday comes around, you're going to be like, all right, this is the word for box, this is the word for lamp, and now I'm going to add 2 more. And I just keep doing that. It may be that minimal, but not for nothing. After 2 months, you're going to have enough words. If every time you come back to it, you're just like, oh yeah, I know this word, this word, this word, now I'm going to add 2 more. I know all these words, now I'm going to add 2 more. I'm going to add all these words, and I'm going to add 2 more. It becomes easier and easier. But it's like piece by piece. Like if you're learning 6 words a week, so you were, after 2 months, like 48 words. Knowing 48 words in another language is better than nothing. And maybe after a year, you start putting sentences together. You start getting sentence structure. And maybe after 2 or 3 years, you're actually able to have a simple conversation. Or at least that's what you think. And then you find out you get involved in some stuff and you can actually have more of a complicated discussion because of all the words you've learned. And now you're just learning how to put them together in a way that people can understand you. It's that small and steady. They're like, it doesn't become overwhelming and it does build. The trick is to not let it be in a way that you're going to end up feeling overwhelmed or like, oh, I got to do this today. It's trying to not let it get there and kind of like take it apart in little pieces and just make it different so that it works for you and builds you up to where you need to go. And even though it may be like, maybe the goal you want, doing it that way, it'll take you 5 years to be able to speak this language. I would kind of challenge, like, how many years, if it was a language maybe you just thought you couldn't do, if that was the goal originally, how many years have passed by where you just haven't gone anywhere with it because you didn't believe you could? You know what I mean? If you think of it that way. If you look backwards and like, how many years have I wanted to do it but didn't believe I could do whatever this goal is? But now if I look forward and I do it this small but sure way, slow and steady direction, after 5 years, I might actually be fluent in this language. And it's better than not. And I always wanted to learn it. I always wanted to do it. So maybe I should start now. One of those things. All right. I feel like whatever the message was, I feel like that cinched it up. If there was something missing, hopefully that helped. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like a direct reading from me, shoot me an email, jamesforastral@gmail.com. That's James the number 4, astral@gmail.com. If you're interested in the donation information, that's below, same email. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.